Welcome back to Awakening the Spiritual Mind. My name is Elisabeth Carrio. I am you in Chapter 8. We practiced listening, silence, intuition, and generative attention. Today we meet what can still distort that listening from the inside. Belief loops. Old scripts that feel like facts because they are familiar. This episode helps you to spot, somatically interrupt, and rewrite the code. As usual, I'd like to open with a short passage from Chapter 9.
Chapter 9. The Belief Loops That Run Us. In the previous chapter, you learned to slow down, to listen, to soften into presence. But presence alone is not enough. To truly live differently, we must face what blocks our clarity, not from the outside, but from within. At the center of these blocks live beliefs, stories we have inherited, absorbed, or repeated so often, they feel like facts. These beliefs shape how we interpret life, how we react to others, and how we show up for ourselves. Even in silence, they can distort what we hear. This chapter is not about blaming your past. It is about reclaiming authorship. Because before you can embody the truth that is emerging within you, you must identify and unhook from the scripts that keep you small. Invisible scripts, the unseen narratives that guide our lives. Most of us do not wake up in the morning and declare, "Today I will live from an inherited belief system that limits my potential." And yet that is often exactly what happens. Beneath our daily choices and emotional reactions run invisible scripts, unconscious narratives about who we are, what we are allowed to have, and what the world expects of us. These scripts do not announce themselves. They do not ask for permission. They simply run like background code in the mind's operating system, quietly shaping the direction of our lives. You were not born with these stories. You absorbed them. Some arrived through the tone of a parent's voice, the silence after you cried, the praise only given when you performed. Others came from classroom rules, religious expectations, media portrayals, or cultural messages repeated so often they became internal law. Over time, repetition creates reinforcement. Emotion creates stickiness. And what began as a moment becomes a mindset. Beliefs are not facts, they're familiar. A belief is not the same as truth. It is a lens, shaped by experience and emotion. The brain, in its need for efficiency, favors familiarity over accuracy. This is a survival strategy. Beliefs that are repeated, especially early in life, become true, not because they are rational, but because they feel familiar. The brain seeks pattern recognition. Even harmful beliefs can stick if they have been rehearsed often enough. These scripts often carry an emotional charge. Shame-based beliefs. I am too much. I am not enough. Fear-based beliefs. If I speak up, I'll be rejected. If I rest, I'll fall behind. Control-based beliefs. If I do everything right, I won't get hurt. Some of these beliefs may have helped you survive early environments, but what protects you at one stage can imprison you in another. If belief is stored in the subconscious, then healing must reach the subconscious. Most traditional therapies target the conscious mind, exploring thoughts, analyzing behavior, unpacking the past. But the most deeply rooted beliefs often lie beneath awareness, encoded not just in memory, but in emotion, sensation, and symbol. These beliefs resist logic because they were not formed by logic, they were absorbed. That is where hypnosis helps, not as entertainment, but as a therapeutic path to the layer where change really begins. What is hypnosis? Hypnosis is not mind control. It is not about being unconscious or manipulated. Hypnosis is best understood as a naturally occurring, highly focused state of awareness, where the critical, analytical mind temporarily softens, allowing the subconscious to become more accessible. Neuroscience supports this. Functional MRI scans show that during hypnosis, activity in the default mode network decreases, reducing self-judgment and habitual thinking. Connectivity between the executive and salience networks increases, allowing for deeper emotional reprocessing and new associations. In this altered state, the mind becomes more receptive to suggestion, not in a passive way, but in a collaborative, guided way. This makes hypnosis a powerful space for rewriting belief scripts, from I am unworthy to I am safe to receive, or from I must control everything to I can trust the unfolding. The subconscious mind does not respond to facts. It responds to imagery, metaphor, and emotion. This is why, even when you know a belief is irrational, it can still feel true. Hypnosis works by speaking in the language of the subconscious, using story, symbol, and somatic feeling to encode new associations at the level where real change occurs. Studies at Harvard Medical School have demonstrated that hypnosis can regulate autonomic responses, decrease cortisol levels, and shift brainwave activity from beta, alert, to theta, deep relaxed, the same range in which early childhood imprinting occurs. Under hypnosis, the mind becomes more neuroplastic and the body more relaxed, allowing you to lay down new tracks of belief, tracks not built from fear, but from alignment. Reprogramming the script. In hypnotherapy, you do not simply install a new belief like flipping a switch. Instead, you enter a dialogue with the subconscious. You are guided into a deeply relaxed state where a skilled practitioner helps surface the original imprint behind the limiting belief, activate the emotional and sensory memory attached to it, offer new imagery and language that reframe the experience, create a felt sense of resolution, expansion, or agency. Because beliefs are not just ideas, they are emotional codes, and emotional codes can be rewritten when you return to the layer where they first took root. Hypnosis is a powerful tool, but not always appropriate for untreated trauma, dissociation, or unresolved grief. In such cases, trauma-informed hypnotherapy or integrative somatic practices should be prioritized, ensuring the body remains regulated and the client maintains agency at all times. When used ethically and skillfully, hypnosis is not bypass, it is deep access, a return to the original blueprint beneath defense and adaptation. What you consciously believe is only part of your story. The deeper script runs beneath awareness. Hypnosis gives you a key, not to fix yourself, but to remember who you were before the false beliefs began. And once that doorway opens, you do not have to force change. You simply no longer believe the old story. Practice, from loop to liberation. To rewrite a belief, ask, is this true in all cases? Who gave me this idea? What purpose did this belief once serve? Is it still serving me? What would I choose to believe now? Then speak the new belief, not like an affirmation you don't trust, but like a truth you are willing to grow into.
What we just heard reframes belief as learned code, not ultimate truth. A belief is not a fact. It is a story that once kept you safe. Let's slow down and look at how that story gets written. A belief loop begins with a moment of charge, a strong emotion. Fear, shame, rejection, humiliation, something the body registers as too much. Then the mind rushes in to protect you. It creates a thought that makes sense of the pain. Maybe I shouldn't speak too loudly. Maybe I have to be perfect to be loved. Maybe it's safer if I disappear, and so on. That single thought repeats quietly, habitually, until it becomes a belief. And once a belief is installed, behavior follows automatically. You act from it, even when you no longer remember why. Over time, it fuses with your identity. You no longer say, I feel small. You start saying, that's just who I am. This is the architecture of a belief loop. A charged emotion gives rise to a protective thought, gives rise to repetition, a belief that drives emotion, and then an identity that feels permanent. But it's not permanent. It's practiced. And here is why this sticks. The brain doesn't love truth. It loves familiarity. If a story was rehearsed early, especially in a moment charged with fear or shame, the nervous system will cling to it because it feels predictable. Even painful beliefs can feel safe simply because they are known. So the mind defends them even when they hurt. That's how we end up living inside invisible scripts that shape every decision, every relationship, every boundary. And these beliefs don't just live in thought, they live in the body, in the posture that contracts before saying no, in the jaw that locks around unspoken truth, in the breath that stops right before you share what matters more. The loop is not abstract, it's cellular. You don't just think the belief, you inhabit it. This is why awareness must include the body. You cannot think your way out of a story your nervous system still believes. But you can begin to notice, to trace the sensation, the emotion, the reflex that accompanies the old code. To meet it not with judgment, but with curiosity. The goal is never to attack the belief or to shame the pattern. It is to see it, to thank it for the protection it once offered, and then gently to choose again. Because every time you notice a loop, instead of living inside it, you reclaim a little more energy, a little more freedom, to become who you are actually meant to be. This is the work, to unlearn the reflex, not by force, but by awareness, to turn compassion into code rewriting, and to let every small moment of noticing become a doorway to the next story that's waiting to be lived. I would like to give you 3 pathways to change. First, through cognitive inquiry. Pick one sticky belief and ask yourself, is it true in all cases? What did it once protect? What does it cost now? What do I choose to believe instead? Write what I call a bridge belief you can grow into. It is safe to be seen. Rest is part of excellence. I am allowed to change my mind. Speak it out aloud once daily, when calm, not only in crisis. Second exercise is about somatic interrupt. The nervous system must feel safe to allow a new story. Try this quick reset when activated. Exhale long, on 6 or 8 count, twice. Place a hand where the body holds the loop, the throat, the chest, the belly, and say, "Thank you for trying to protect me. We are safe now." Then take one tiny aligned action. Send the email, for example, say no, post the task. Third exercise is about subconscious access. When beliefs were absorbed beneath thought, they often shift the best beneath thought. Tools include guided imagery, part dialogue, and clinical hypnosis with a qualified practitioner. Think of it as entering a receptive focused state where the old association is rewritten with new imagery and new feeling of safety. Use ethically, especially with trauma, safety, and agency first. And then in your awakening journal or your book note, write for 10 minutes. First on the origin story. The earliest memory that echoes my current belief is complete the sentence. What did this belief protect? What does it cost now? The sentence I am willing to practice this week is, and try to complete the sentence. When the old loop returns, I notice it here in my body and do this one reset and write what exactly you did in the previous exercise. If the loop returns, it doesn't mean you failed. It means the nervous system is rehearsed. Rehearsal changes with repetition and safety. Listening in chapter 8 gives you the signal. Rewriting, chapter 9, gives you the choice. Next, we will meet the inner architecture that defends these loops, the ego. Not to destroy it, but to disarm it and invite it into service. Thank you for listening to Awakening the Spiritual Mind.